This show, as folks have known, is going to be changing. We're getting close to 100 episodes. I'm going to be, I'm going to be changing the time of the News and Rumors show, right? Folks know that the News and Rumors show is live on Sundays at, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to be changing that. We've split the show. I'm doing interviews separately now. I mean, I've got Oliver on today, and that's different. So lots is changing. The 100th episode, I believe, will be live from LA at the Hello Future Live conference, which I'm excited about. And yeah, so that's basically the big change that the show is going through. Is the Hashgraph Enthusiast show is news and interviews. So with that, good morning. This is the first time I've ever said good morning on the show. Good morning from Ottawa, Canada, everyone. My name is Brandon Davenport, aka It's Brandon D. It is Friday, September 8th, and you're listening to episode 92 of the Hashgraph Enthusiast show, an interview with Oliver Thorn, live on Spaces. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and other platforms to hear past episodes, including the recording of today's conversation. Also, make sure to catch the weekly Hashgraph Enthusiast news. It's for now, the next episode is going to be Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. But like I said, that's going to change. I'll talk about it on that show on Sunday. Get all the info you need about the show at itsbrandond.com/hbar. For folks listening live now, take a moment, share the spaces with your friends. And if you've got an interesting question for the guest today, click the comment button at the bottom right. If it's super interesting, I'll ask the guest live on the show. We can see what they have to say. No guarantees and no dumb questions allowed. That is my job. For folks listening to the recording, leave a comment and break down your thoughts on what we're going to talk about today. Let's keep the conversation going after the show. So, just a quick note, my guest today doesn't know the questions I'm about to ask. I know that a lot of times in podcasts and interviews and stuff, there's like pre-questions and this and that. It's like, I just like having a conversation. So with that, I want to give a quick intro and then we're going to dive into it because I'm really excited to connect with Oliver. So who is Hedera? Who does Hedera want to be? An adult in the room with an inner degen let loose once in a while, sometimes reined in. In crypto, a network's X or Twitter account is their main connection to the retail community, a lifeline and a large part of their brand identity. It can't be understated how important X or crypto Twitter has been for giving that first impression. Over the last year, I've been talking a lot on the show about a shift I've seen in the brand voice of Hedera. It's been fascinating to watch. And I mean, I've been in the Hedera ecosystem for, well over 4 years now. And it's been fascinating to watch that spark of personality break through the enterprise timeline and a sign that Hedera continues to grow closer to the community. With the Hedera account being such a vital aspect of the network's brand and the Hashgraph community laser focused on retail adoption, I wondered who was responsible for the account. Who is in the middle of all this? For months, I've been trying to get Oliver on the show. Oliver's in Dubai. It's just so crazy to schedule that. So I'm so happy the show is so much different now. We can have Oliver on. And we've made it happen at a really important time. He's the social media manager for Hedera and someone I think that the community is excited to hear from. So let's break free from the timeline and have a conversation with one of the personalities behind the posts. One community member to another. This is a conversation about posting memes on social media. Oliver, it's great to have you. How are you doing? And what's the most interesting thing happening in your life right now?
Hey, Brandon. I just want to say thanks for having me on. That was a great intro. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Oliver. I've been in the Hashgraph community for a little over 3 years, and I've been the social media manager for the past year and a half or so. What's the most interesting thing happening in my life right now? Well, it's been a busy week. I'm preparing for Token 2049. I'll be flying out on Monday. It's just it's great to be on the show. It's great to connect with you.
Right on. I'm really excited to get into it. And a bit of a preface to this is I'm very curious about this topic as a marketing professional myself. So a lot of these questions are kind of through the lens of a fellow brand manager and marketer, and hopefully we can get through this in an hour. But as you said, right, a year and a half ago, in April 2022, you became the social media manager for Hedera. And I'm curious on what your journey was. Like, how did you discover Hedera? How did you end up joining the team?
Yeah, I actually have quite a kind of a weird story on joining Hedera, something that I think would be pretty unique. So I think I found Hedera through, it was probably some sort of hate post on the cryptocurrency subreddit. For those who don't know, there's a huge bias against Hedera on the cryptocurrency subreddit that seems to be turning as of late, but it's always been seen in sort of a bad light. And I discovered it and I saw it, and the more that I read into it and the more that I explored Hedera and Hashgraph, the more I was thinking this is sort of the answer to everything in Web3. And I just became obsessed. So I was working at a bunch of different jobs at the time. And I became very active in the community in August 2020, back when the subreddit was Hedera, sorry, Hashgraph, not Hedera. And from mid 2020 to late 2020, I became very active on the community there and on Twitter under the name Dr. Manhattan. Basically just making memes.
By the way,
and
Dr. Manhattan, that's fantastic.
yeah, so I was making these memes on the Hashgraph subreddit, using films like Matrix. There was one with the Wolf of Wall Street. And yeah, I was working a job at the time, working for a payments infrastructure provider in the UK. And what I was doing there, I was qualifying leads, amongst other things, crypto custodians and lenders and exchanges that wanted to integrate our product into their systems. But I wasn't super happy at the job. I wasn't happy that crypto, which had been, a core part of my life for 4 years at the time, that it was only 10-15% of my job. So I took the maybe rash decision of quitting and thinking I've got to put all of my energy into finding a job that is directly involved with crypto, like find a job at a crypto company. So I made that my mission. The first thing I did was I started coding. That's sort of where I saw, okay, this is how I'm going to get a job in crypto, coding, learn how to, I have a background in computer science from university. And I wanted to show that I can code, and I also know how to navigate explorers and that sort of thing. And so the first thing I did on my journey to finding a job in crypto, I'd had this idea for a while, but I never put it into practice, and I saw that there wasn't anything like it in the market. But rewind a little. Back when I was deep in the degen scene, and I was deep into shitcoins, I bought $100 worth of Shiba Inu probably a few hours after it deployed, and I got 120 billion Shiba Inu, and I think I sold it for like $50 profit, and then obviously it exploded.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
A classic crypto tale.
exactly. And I never thought I'd be part of one, but yeah, here I am. And I always thought about it because, when I bought it, it was like, okay, this is just some stupid dog token. Like I made 50% profit in a day. That's great. $50, fantastic. And then Doge blows up, Shiba Inu blows up. And then I look at it and I see, oh, if I'd sold it at the top, I would have had $12 million or whatever. And they ate me up, So I created this web app, which is still up. The code is garbage, but it works. You can put in any Ethereum address, and this will also work for Binance Smart Chain or Avalanche. It'll analyze your account at every single point in time, and it'll tell you when you should have stopped trading and how rich you would be if you
That's
did.
hilarious and terrifying.
Yeah, I released it. Most people hated it. Some people saw the humor in it, but most people hated it, understandably. They don't like to be told, this is where you screwed up and this is how much richer you could have been if you just stopped trading. Um, so yeah, I made that and I started looking around. All through the time, I was still, heavily involved in the Hedera community, uh, making memes, making certain uh, analysis documents, posts, this sort of thing. And then I see that Andrew, who's the demand gen manager over here at Swirls Labs, that he posted the social media manager job on Twitter. And, I was getting more active on Twitter at this point, and I saw it on Reddit, and I just said, I gotta go for it, you know? And so I actually made a plea, and you can still see this on the Hedera subreddit. I made a case um, for me being picked as the social media manager, just to sort of set myself apart a little bit. So in it, I included, like my top posts from the defunct Hashgraph subreddit. Um, I also ended up speaking to Alaskan State Senator Mike Shower. You can find this all in the post because I saw in the news that he proposed implementing, this is around 2020, proposed implementing blockchain for voting systems. Um, and so I just decided to, I was like, well, they shouldn't be using blockchain. There's superior technologies. Blockchain is a little non-inclusive. And so I decided I'll just call this guy's office. And so I just called his office. I got his receptionist. And then through a few conversations with the receptionist, I ended up speaking with his, chief, advisor, a few of those. And then I ended up speaking to, uh, Senator Shower himself and got him to include in the legislation, which you can see online, um, to remove the word blockchain and instead include DHEs such as Hashgraph, et cetera, et cetera. So I put that all in the post. I basically said I've been dedicated to the community for a very long time, and you can see it through my post history and what I've done. I just want to be given a chance to show that I'm right for the position. And from that post, Andrew reached out to me on the username on Reddit for the Hedera account is Hashgraph. He reached out to me on that account. And yeah, from then on, it was about 2 weeks of interviews with the team, the Hedera team. This was maybe a month before most of us switched over to Swirls Labs. And yeah, a couple of weeks later, I got the job. And here we are today.
Crazy. So it's kind of a story of like you applied for a job you were kind of already doing in a way.
Kind of, yeah. Well, that's what I kind of wanted to bring across. It's like, I think at the time, there needed to be a little more, um, appeal to uh, the casualness that is the crypto Twitter and how Hedera was doing it. And, I know that at least a few people enjoyed my posts on, um, as I posted them throughout the years. And I thought maybe I could bring some, I guess as you would call it, spice to the account. And yeah, that's what been trying to do. And that's what I hope to continue doing into the future.
I dig it. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. And I mean, if anyone's listening right now and you've got friends out there that are curious about the topic of memes and spicy posts on Hedera, now's the time to share the spaces and have them tune in. Because many in the Hashgraph community are curious, like, who is the Hedera account? I mean, sure, we have the generic pre-scheduled posts, but what interests people are the posts that, as you said, kind of seem to feel a little fire from the hip or stream of consciousness, right? Like the spicy ones that ruffle feathers and show some personality. And they appeal to retail. And there's been quite a few, even some that didn't get deleted. And I've come to learn that you're behind, a lot of these gems, and we'll talk about a few. But first, like, How much of the content on the Hedera account is published or overseen by you?
Um, Probably I'd say 95%.
Okay.
So I'll make all the copy for the more generic posts as well. Um, but yeah, um, for the vast majority of it, there are occasional exceptions, like very exceptionally technical posts where someone like Brady, who, if I'm not mistaken, used to run the account mostly before I
Yeah, it was
joined.
it was a Brady production before.
Right, exactly. So there are certain exceptions, but as far as what goes out, yeah, I'd say I oversee probably 85, 90% of it.
Right.
Um, with regards to the, yeah, so with regards to like deleted tweets and things of that nature, the spicy tweet something, stuff like that. Sometimes we have to retroactively delete tweets based on the, macro Web3 environment, how things like certain words or phrases are contextualized and how that might be viewed in the space, which everyone knows is constantly changing. And Hedera obviously wants to be cautious and try to steer clear of anything that might be viewed in the future as problematic. But, what you're assuming to more, referring to more is the more provocative ones that I personally have made and in either immediate or delayed hindsight have deleted. So, um, so I have full access to the Hedera account, right? And I have very strong opinions, personal opinions, as we all do, about Hedera and Web3 in general. And in many cases, I can express those views publicly, and be in alignment with the responsibility granted to me by Hedera. And I do so on a regular basis, and I get positive engagement from the community. So there's those short, punchy, eye-catchy ones, stuff like that, and they can be said, um, and all good, right? It was I believe part of the reason why they gave me the job in the first place. But for me, I think it's important to realize when those views diverge from being representative of Hedera as a brand, which I try to represent as best I can at all times, and begin being more primarily representative of my own personal views, which, as can be strong and maybe at sometimes it's a little aggressive. They can be seen. It comes from passion. I've been passionate about the project for years, and sometimes that passion comes through in ways that, while exciting, provocative, might be seen as a sign of, strength or even cockiness, are probably more appropriate, for my own account, or not the brand account. Obviously, we want to display strength, but sometimes I think that, there's a certain overlap. There's a line I have to be constantly aware of. This is a huge network, professional organization that's backed by even larger, more established organizations. So, in the future, I'll continue to do my best for the community, as I have for the past year and a half. Create content that the community enjoys, finds engaging, brings their strength to light, and not shy away from it as best I can while towing that line. And, who knows, maybe look at some, as you call it, dark Hedera here and there along the way.
I dig it, and I think that's I think a main reason why people find this intriguing, and a lot of folks in the retail community find it appealing, is like when you have a brand like, a a network like Hedera, even if you look at other larger brands outside the vertical, right, like a McDonald's or a Burger King, they'll have their kind of like goofy, funny, spicy tweets and stuff. It's social media has created this environment where people want to see a person or a personality behind a brand. So I think people like those kind of things that peek through the, as I said, kind of like the enterprise timeline. But I'm curious, like real quick, like what's the process like for getting a post published to the account? Like, is it miles of red tape, or like as you said, are you just kind of hitting send from your phone?
Well, we don't want to get to a point where, the with Hedera and Swirls Labs, there's an already element of compartmentalization there, and certain tweets do have to go through a red tape process, especially ones that are concerned with policy, things of that nature. But generally, the process is, I do have access to it on my phone.
So you have the ability to just use your best judgment and fire from the hip in the moment, because sometimes social media strategies necessitate the ability to kind of react to a trend or do something in the moment. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So like, I think a good example is, so this was like a few months ago, right? I think it was Watcher Guru. They posted something about celebrating Ethereum's 1.8 billion transactions. And I replied to the post with this meme. It's a meme of like this, it's hard to describe. It's like this little guy, they're playing chess, and the little guy is like all happy. And I put that as like Ethereum positive 1.8. And then it's like this big guy that's like patting the little guy on the head.
Oh, right. People know that. That's an iconic meme. I think I remember that. And did that one last, or did that one get?
Yeah, no. So that one lasted, right? And I had to,
great.
I had to, in the moment, like I got it because I get the Watcher Guru notifications on my phone. I saw it. I was like, oh, I have to do something for this, and it was weird because I just had this. I saw the meme like a couple weeks before. I was like, this could be useful someday. And I like quickly, Photoshop edited this meme together, and I had my finger on the button, like post or like no post. I was like, am I gonna get in trouble with this? Like, can I? I think I even asked in the work Slack, like, am I gonna get in trouble for this? But I was like,
so there is that element. So there is that element to this. Like, I just want to touch on that. Is because you're running the social media account for 300,000 follower, like major network. There's pressure. Like, you do have those moments where you're like, oh, doing this in the moment is going to be so beneficial and galvanizing kind of the retail community behind our brand. It's going to get us so much goodwill with the brand. It's going to get people excited, right. But you're hesitant because like, like someone's going to message you like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to get in trouble. So you do kind of put yourself out on the line a little bit to push Hedera in that direction.
Exactly. So that's why, I do enjoy putting out the, more punchy, provocative posts, especially when they're, relevant. Like when the whole MEV bot thing was blowing up, and we talk about, transaction ordering and how it basically kills MEV bots. Something unique to Hedera. So when it's good that I have my finger on the button and I have that sort of access, and they've sort of given me that trust to react when I need to or think is appropriate. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. It's like, this is a huge network, and it's like, while these large established brands like Wendy's or McDonald's, they have this personable face to them on their social media. It's like, these are, multi-billion-dollar established brands in established industries. I feel like they can take more risk. Like, these big brands have had lots of controversy with their social media, but it doesn't really affect them.
Right. Right.
It doesn't affect them in a huge way because they're a multi-billion dollar corporation, and it's a scandal it'll blow over. Whereas Hedera, while it is, I guess you could consider it to be large in Web3, it's still in a nascent industry, and it is at least from our perspective and how long term we're thinking, and a nascent network. So since social media is such a huge part of it, there is an aspect of pressure that comes to it on, what if I say the wrong thing? And in the past, there have been cases where I have said the wrong thing, either directly or through my own, reflection, seeing and saying that's not good. Like I shouldn't do that. So yeah, that's sort of the makeup of it. I have control along with a couple of other people in the company, and yeah, I'm sort of given that trust, and we don't want to get into a point where there is a system where there needs to be so much red tape, where if there is an opportunity to post a funny meme or a statement that's relevant to something that's happening in Web3, has to go through levels of bureaucracy before it can be posted, and by that time it's irrelevant.
Right. Yeah, it's that balance. It's the risk and reward of having like it's risky for brands to have a personality, but it wins over community. So I hear you 100%. And on kind of that, in that vein, like, what are your thoughts on the community sentiment that Hedera doesn't focus enough on retail? Often the community feels out of the loop. For example, staking updates where, you don't see the meeting minutes until like a very long time after the meeting's held. And it kind of happens so fast and it's overwhelming, and people are kind of like, whoa, like what's going on? And so sometimes it's very often, both from the outside perspective and also internally, that there still feels like there's a bit of that distance between, Hedera, the governing council, that organization, and the community, and that sentiment that, there needs to be more focus on the retail space. I'm just curious to see if kind of you see that, or if you have any thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I would say that we're constantly trying and, seeking out ways to better our relationship with retail and further our development in that space. It's definitely not an afterthought. I can understand the frustration with, for example, the latest update with staking, and I know that there's been a lot of frustration in the community voice that it wasn't communicated properly. I think that from the Hedera side, they are very, very cautious and aware that they want to at all times do things in proper ways as far as policy and regulation goes. I say this as someone, my opinions do not represent the opinions of
Yeah, of course,
et cetera, et cetera. I think that communication is something that we absolutely have to work on. The idea that we don't, I had similar opinions, and of course this was 2 years ago before I joined the community, about not having a lot of focus on retail, but also a lot of my interest was in the institutional adoption of Hedera, so it wasn't sort of top of my priority list, but I acknowledged that it was a issue. But once I got in, you do realize how much work is being done to sort of further retail adoption, whether that be through HIPs, through supporting various projects in the ecosystem, making it easier for an individual developer as opposed to a company development team to develop something revolutionary on Hedera. There is definitely a lot of work being done, but I do acknowledge that communication is something that I wouldn't say um, needs to be addressed, but it's something that is uh, definitely being worked on.
I love to hear that. I think that's great. And I'm happy that I think that this conversation has had so many times with different people, but I think that the person that's really kind of a little bit of the personality behind the brand and really responsible for a lot of that communication, I think that it's just great to kind of break down those barriers and just talk about it, because I think that
Mhm.
the closer that the community can come to Hedera, it's like sometimes it can feel like these two separate worlds. Can we get them close together? I think that that's part of that pathway to decentralization. I love it. Now,
Yeah.
I want to move on to um, a specific topic that I think people are curious about, and we're going to talk about memes and all these different types of things. But just a real quick shout out to folks supporting the show. I appreciate it. You can send an HBAR contribution to the show. The address to do that is in the thread pinned to the top of the Jumbotron here. Brought to you by listeners like you, all that, yada, yada, yada. But and one thing is, this year, especially, we've seen some very offbeat posts like we've been talking about with memes and different things like that. And these posts stick out like a sore thumb against the backdrop of what appears to be a very serious timeline, which, is very evident. And these posts excited the retail community. I think disgusted some traditional investors. Some of these like older guys and precious metal people were like, what's going on? And I think maybe confused Hedera internally as some of these posts were deleted, trying to find things out, find the footing. And I just want to give some notable highlights, some of my personal favorites. Um, I remember when the objects are closer in the mirror meme that was posted. That was something where people were like, "Whoa, Hedera posted a meme!" Like I remember the community being like, "Oh my God, this Hedera's got a pulse!" Like, "Oh man!" And also too on March 4th when Hedera tweeted, um, "LOL," just nothing else. It was just a post. It was just nothing else. That was deleted. In February, there was the infamous like same post to Elon Musk's tweet of the H bar symbol, obviously referring to a mathematical equation, but that was gold. That one lived, thank goodness.
Yep.
Um,
That was before I joined, but that was
okay,
great.
okay.
That was a fantastic one.
Yeah, it was a classic. Obviously, there's been some tweets dunking on networks here and there. Those are fun, sometimes regrettable. But then recently, this is kind of what's really interesting to people is on August 27th. It seems like there's a lot going on because I got a notification on my phone, and
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
there was a tweet from Hedera, and I was like, this is fantastic. The tweet was, quote, honestly, Web3 is funny money without Hedera. LOL. And just seeing that go out on the Hedera account as a retail person, right? I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. It's so great. Like that's great. And then I'm seeing messages from people going like, what is this about? Like, what's going on? So that split, right? That got deleted, but I mean, I can
Yeah.
understand why. Then right after it was the 19 billion soon, whatever without any vowels. That was fun. That one stayed up. That was cool. And then again on the 27th, quote, you tweeted that, and this was the spicy one that I love that I kept sharing, which was the quote, keep complaining, keep talking about your potential. Why don't you talk about your utility? Stop talking about what could be done. Start talking about what is being done. And it's those kinds of tweets that I think bring together a lot of sentiment that the community has and reflects it back at them, which I think is really powerful to connect. But if, those things freak a lot of people out, like I was talking about, probably potential enterprise customers in the pipeline
Mhm.
or institutional investors. So that one obviously, didn't make it, shout out. But I like those tweets because it brings that personality. I think it's great. But what would you say is the intention behind those kind of like spicy tweets? Is it really like to try and break free from the enterprise vibe and embrace retail, like kind of head in that direction? And are you trying to like get into a position where you're doing more of these in the future?
Yeah. Well, this is where as I mentioned before, I kind of have to toe the line between professionalism and what my own opinions are. And that's where I felt like, I do, that is sort of, you could, if you knew me, you could hear those words, coming out of my mouth, that is something I believe, a lot. There's a lot of talk about there's a lot of talk about potential, like, oh, we can do this, or we can handle this or that, or this enables big banks to do X, Y, Z. It's like, okay, well, are they doing it? Whereas with Hedera, it's we are doing those things, and you can see the action on the mainnet. And yeah, from my personal standpoint, that was it was just I'm glad you liked it. First of all, thank you. But it was I just saw it as being a little uh, aggressive to the wider Web3 community. Obviously, we are supportive of Web3 as a whole, and I think that's what the um, um, image should be.
Yeah, it's like it's that balance between connecting with and emboldening the Hedera community, but also not alienating other networks where, a Hedera person might see that tweet and go like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like that's
Exactly.
epic. But someone on the outside that might want to explore Hedera might see that and take that as kind of off-putting.
Exactly. Whereas the meme with the 1.8 sort of that's sort of like ribbing. That's casual, just network ribbing on network, and it was more fun than provocative and aggressive. So that's where the sort of difference comes in. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. I think that there's disturbing lack of discussion and emphasis in Web3 about real world utility. I think there's a lot of things being done in Web3 that are being done for the sake of Web3, if you know what I mean. Like things that are they create value only in the sense that they are creating value in Web3 and not to something like an enterprise or something like, for example, recently, if any of you have been keeping up with the podcast, Toko just recently helped do the first home equity tokenization.
Oh, right. The
using
quarter
Hedera.
the quarter homes. It was like
Quarter homes.
Yeah, that was
Exactly.
crazy.
Exactly. And that's like, she tokenized and fractionalized the home equity of a $700,000 home and saved her mortgage payments by 50%. But that is, the fact that can get more press as something that Web3 is doing that is revolutionary and how it can change the world, it doesn't get as much press as something that
I just want to say
may
that
only affect Web3.
I agree with that 100%. Like those hooks, like the fact that, you save 50% on your mortgage by doing that. Also too, like, Diamond Standard tokenizing $50 million in diamonds and stuff like that. There's a part of me that goes, those are some directions where you can kind of get it, you can lean into it a bit. Like I was like, when that many diamonds was tokenized on Hedera, why didn't Hedera switch their profile picture to like a diamond or something, right? Sometimes it's like, like just those exciting things that get people excited, get the community excited. That's when you want to see those memes. But I get it, because you can only go so far, and sometimes those exciting aspects of these stories are sometimes I feel best communicated with like a dumb meme or a quippy post rather than some press release with a big link or a big thread. Sometimes you can accomplish so much more with 100 character tweet with a funny meme or something.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I tried to do with when the whole MEV thing was blowing up.
Right.
It's one thing to say like, oh, we have fair transaction ordering, but it's like that's not punchy. So I made like a little meme and I posted on the account, right? Just to it's very quick. It gets to the point. It says like MEV bots would not be possible on Hedera because we have provably mathematically fair ordering of transactions, something that, as far as I don't know, other network has. And that's something that we should continue to yell from the rooftops, and you got to continue to stress the things that make Hedera unique, but do it in a way that is fun and engaging, and hopefully brings interest and people over from other networks.
Love it. And so obviously some of these didn't make it, whether it was yourself that kind of deleted it in hindsight, or I'm like, obviously, like the tweets getting deleted is, I think, what like causes a lot of intrigue. Like, I think that a lot of folks have in their camera roll on their phone these kind of like screenshotted, deleted, rare Hedera tweets that they cherish. You know what I mean? And so maybe maybe if you like, what actually happens when the tweet gets deleted? Is it like somebody at Hedera is like, hey Oliver, like, what are you doing? Delete the tweet, or is it more just like you kind of looking at the situation, reflecting on it, and deciding, maybe this should be brought off the timeline?
Yeah, so it's case by case. There have been certain ones where I've been asked to delete it, and there have been certain ones. I guess I won't go into specifics on um, which ones were which, but I would say probably most of them, the ones that you referenced, have been me in most of the times immediate hindsight, or I've gotten a slight nudge that this is not the way we want to portray the network, and unfortunately that's what it is. All I can do is sort of cherish the ones that do stay, and I mean, I'm to go back to your question before about, is this somewhere that we want to be? Yeah, for me personally, yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Like,
Honestly,
I want to be able to make those tweets and not.
yeah, I want to ask you, what was the story behind the LOL tweet? I don't know if it was in response to something, because brands will do that. Like, I've done that where there's something happening like in the zeitgeist, and instead of responding to a conversation, you just kind of throw something out there like LOL, and kind of people know what you're referring to or something. But like, Hedera tweeted LOL. Was there anything kind of behind that, or was that you? Or I was just curious, that tweet. I didn't know what it was
Yeah,
about.
I'm sorry to disappoint, and I'm being 100% truthful on this. There was something going on at the time that was sort of taking over my feed. I don't remember what an exact reference it was to, but it was I can't give a clear answer on that. It was in response to something that was happening in the Web3 space at the time. It was probably not even that big. I just saw
Okay,
it.
so it was a thing of like, you were having an experience and you were like, oh, everybody's having this experience, and then reflecting, you're like, oh, this was my algorithm, not everyone else's algorithm.
Yeah,
Right.
basically.
I thought it was great. Even though I had no clue what it was about, I was like, hey, Hedera, you have a good time. But definitely I had chats and DMs full of, like, again, like the Mike Maloney guys that are like, this is unacceptable. Like, delete this. Like, you know what I mean?
Precisely. Yeah,
Oh my
so
God.
that's what I have to be you know, wary of. And
Yeah.
it's it's a bit of a juggling act, really, because we have to be we do have to sort of cater to this uh, enterprise crowd as well, and come across as a professional company. And on LinkedIn, that is what you'll exclusively see, unsurprisingly. Um, but on Twitter, which is the one with more, both from enterprise and retail, more exposure. So it is a bit of a juggling act. I do enjoy actually writing the copy for, stuff, for example, like I re-uploaded the Guardian video, and I did all the copy for that. I enjoy doing those, I enjoy making the content text-wise for the professional crowd as well. So it's a bit of a juggling act in the sense that, sometimes we can be fun, sometimes we can be provocative, but you know, uh, at
It's
for
a bit of
the
art.
for
It's a
the
bit of an
most
art.
part, we
It's a bit of an art form. It's a creative medium that, like, I'm the same. Twitter's fun. Like, doing these kinds of things are fun when you have, even Instagram, where you have these kind. I'm a big believer that the best forms of creativity happen within these restrictions. So I find sometimes platforms that have those creative restrictions, like, Instagram, you can't put links in the copy, or LinkedIn, there's like, the native articles perform way worse than just regular posts. And Twitter's, sometimes you're limited to threads instead of a long post. It's like you just get
Mhm.
creative. You go with the wave of the platform, and it's so much more rewarding when a piece of content does well or a message lands. It's like you've kind of, figured out some puzzle or something.
Yeah, no, it's been great to be I've been given sort of more leg room than I would have even expected to sort of exercise and experiment creatively. Um, as the conversation is about, some of them, they go through and some of them don't. But it's been a great opportunity for me to see people enjoy my content, like the 10 billion video with
Oh yeah, what was that
Lehman.
about? Was that video, again, felt like a piece of content to me that, like, maybe wouldn't have happened without you as the social media manager? Like,
Oh
was
yeah, no,
that something you were involved in?
I storyboarded the whole thing, and
Wow.
I sent it to Lehman and Mance and um, uh, Vanessa, who was the sort of personal assistant at the time. And I said, I think this would be a cool video to do. Can you send me the video clips, and I will edit it for a more like professional um,
The editing and keyboard
announcement.
sounds were really important.
Yeah,
That's what
no,
brought it all together.
yeah, no, that was fun putting that in. So for like the more professional videos, like The Guardian, stuff like that, we have a great video editing guy, Claudio Gutierrez, who just does
Yes,
some
shout out to Claudio.
yeah, he does amazing work. But that particular video, I can proudly say that I did. I made the idea for it. I edited the clips in, and yeah, no, that was a proud moment for me. And Lehman and Mance, they're just such like friendly, approachable people. That's what I found, like, honestly, throughout the whole company.
Real quick, like we talk about like, this kind of leads into a next question, but it's a nice pit stop. Is we talk about this kind of split personality of Hedera, right? It's this adult in the room that's sometimes having this fun that, sometimes is too much fun. But Manson, is this something that kind of Manson Lehman? I don't know how much time they spend on X or whatever, but do they kind of see those spicy tweets, or have they kind of brought them up? Are they kind of aware of that dynamic?
So I'd say they're aware of it. That obviously Lehman is um, he's an extremely busy guy, right? And sort of unlike uh, his interests lie elsewhere than being a personality on Twitter, which I can totally
Yeah,
respect.
he's not. Yeah, he's not trying to build a personal brand.
But there are certain they are aware of it because there are certain tweets, and it's mostly the tweets that are sort of more um, in a professional sense, provocative and making a statement that they have been like, this is good. We really like what you're doing. So yeah, they're aware. They don't intervene too much. They're definitely not, micromanagers. But yeah, I'd say that they are aware of this dynamic and this need to um, sort of juggle the face and the brand image to appeal to both enterprise and retail at the same time.
Right. Okay. So, Oliver, how are you for time right now? Because I know we're getting close up on the hour here. I just want to make sure, because we might go a little over. I have a couple more questions for you.
No, I'm good. I probably have to leave just a little after the top of the hour.
Right. Okay.
But we're good.
Okay. So Just to kind of wrap our thoughts on this kind of topic of these deleted tweets, spicy tweets, enterprise versus retail, blah blah blah. Right? Of course, the other side to this is the people that are messaging me like, Hedera's got to delete this tweet. It goes like, this is embarrassing or blah, blah, blah. That maybe they don't get it, or maybe they have a point when they see, like they see the, 19 billion whatever tweet without the vowels and they're like, oh, that doesn't leave the right impression. What, like, to those kind of critics of Hedera's efforts to appeal more to retail, what's the case that you would make to them to convince them, like that it's the right move to do, that it's the right thing for Hedera to express more of that personality and maybe post some things that they don't agree with?
Yeah, I definitely don't want to invalidate anyone's opinion that may not be appropriate. And in many cases, they may be right. And I also have those reservations at times, and that's evidenced by, the certain tweets that I personally have deleted in hindsight. I think I would say that I saw a comment. It was a comment, or someone messaged me personally saying, this is good, and that crypto Twitter is not a boardroom, and that a huge amount of our followers come from this sort of Web3 native space, and we want to appeal to them in sort of a funny, unique way, and it doesn't need to always be suit and tie, straight edge. We're allowed to have a little fun, in my opinion, and I think that's an opinion that's held throughout the community and internally, at least to some extent. So today I'd say, completely entitled to that opinion, and obviously we don't want to leave behind sort of the professional brand image of us being the adults in the room, but at the same time, we want to have a little bit of fun with it, and that's
Yeah.
that's all I can say. I mean, I obviously appreciate everybody's opinion,
Yeah.
on what I'm doing, how I can be doing it better, but yeah, that's what I would say. Is that
Change is good, right? Like like Hedera is much different than it was when a lot of these investors got in. Like when they got in, a lot of them bought because it was patented, because it was structured in a certain way. The organization's changed, the brand is changing, the market is changing, the industry's changing, the world's changing. Get used to it.
And what I would say is that, despite these sort of what some people may perceive as unprofessional, or I guess, in some people's eyes, immature, in contrast to being the adult in the room posts or interactions, that the work being done, and this is to sort of calm the minds of the people that think that it has any effect on our focus. And I don't mean this in the sense that this is our core focus, but our focus on enterprise, is that it does not have, or I would say that it has little to zero effect on the work or interests that large enterprises have in working with us and seeing.
Oh, okay, because that's interesting, because I think that's a big fear, is like, oh, some enterprise is building a big use case, and then they check their Twitter and they see that tweet and they go, oh no, the network I'm working with sent out a spicy tweet, and now I've got it. So that's maybe not the case.
I would again say this is personal opinion. I would say that is not the case. We're continuing to see interest and engagement from our current ecosystem partners, our current governing council members, large companies that are interested in working with us, that are not part of the governing council, and that we don't have partnerships yet. So I would say that no, it doesn't affect that, and I hope that calms the fears of anyone that has that particular one.
Right. Okay. So, just as we kind of get into the end of this, I've got to ask, do you hold the honor of being the person who accidentally followed Sony from the Hedera account, or does someone else hold that badge?
I am the social media manager. To be completely honest, I don't remember doing it, and I can't remember when it would have been.
I have screenshots, my guy.
I remember the whole debacle. Don't worry. I remember it very, very vividly. I just don't remember when I had personally done it. But I am the social media manager, so I do take responsibility for that. I may have accidentally clicked follow. It was it wasn't meant to be, to ruffle any feathers or create breadcrumbs that weren't there. That's the loss.
Right.
That's the
Okay.
lost
So so we can kind of confirm here, because there's been multiple theories thrown around that, like, Sony was going to join the governing council and then they got canceled or blah blah. It from what you're saying, it sounds like it was a situation where it was followed, and you're looking at the count, you're like, wait, we're following Sony? Like, what? Wait, what's going on?
That particular incident, yeah, that was a
okay.
That particular incident was, yes, it was a mistake.
Right. Okay. Crazy. Because I think that this will help a lot of the community, because people are still talking about it.
I know, and it's funny because I'm when I was on the other side of it, I was following all these little breadcrumbs too, right? Like I even created this document, like CBDC connections with Hedera, that was shared on Twitter and Reddit here and there, and that was sort of me latching on to any and all breadcrumbs that I can find, and it's very different being on the other side of the window and seeing what people can come up with to sort of speculate. But yeah, I hope this isn't, for the Sony thing was it wasn't your our part too possible.
No, I think that this is great. Honestly, like I'm like, this conversation's been so great, because I think these types of things are what's going to truly push the community forward. Is us really kind of, as you pointed out, like, less red tape, less formalities. We're all kind of part of this same community. Again, like the governing council members and people on the board, like, they're also HBarbarians as well. They also kind of believe in this stuff the same way we do. They're very passionate about it. And yourself, as kind of the arguably like the voice of Hedera, do you know what I mean? It's like, the more that we can just get together, things aren't really that big of a deal. To me, this is great transparency, and it's like, just clears the air and gets everyone on the same page. And on that topic, like, what's the biggest insight you've learned managing the social media account for a major network like Hedera? And what advice would you give to Web3 projects trying to grow their social media presence?
I guess my advice would be, one of the biggest things is to know your network and, know it inside and out, so you can sort of capitalize on topical issues in ways that relate to your own network. I think that's obviously very key for any social media management teams. The greatest insight, I guess, is that, no matter what you do, you're not going to please everyone, and you just sort of have to accept that. And there's always going to be people in the comments saying the same old things, and you just have to, take the stance of, sticks and stones. You have to accept that those people are never going to go away. There are going to be people that are, you know, never pleased no matter where the network's at. And you just got to keep doing the best you can and not to take it into account, but don't let it sort of take over your thoughts. Don't let it intrude your mindset into thinking that you're doing a bad job. Just keep doing the best that you can, and good things will happen. And obviously, try to. I would say experiment. That's also key. You're gonna do some things wrong. There's gonna be hiccups, and that's just that's not failure. It's just life. And with that experimentation, there's never going to be growth. Yeah, that would be the biggest piece of advice.
That's awesome. Yeah, something a rule that I kind of have for myself and some initiatives is, you tried your best to ignore the good feedback, ignore the negative feedback, and pay attention to things that are repeated to you, right? So if something good is repeated to you by multiple different people in, a distributed way, kind of, then that's probably something you should pay attention to. But kind of the one-off, like, just good, negative, it's like, it doesn't really matter. It's like, what's actually being fed to you that's repeated? What tweaks can you make? That's so important on that kind of trajectory as you kind of grow. And I mean, on that topic of growth, just my last question, a great way to kind of wrap this up is the Hedera account obviously hit 300,000 followers. That's exciting. A lot of people in the community are like, when's it going to hit 1 million followers, right? When is this network's brand going to reach the levels of, a Solana or an Ethereum or whatever, like those, the top ones. And just from a growth perspective, how are you feeling? How's the team feeling about kind of the growth of the brand, the growth of the account? And do you have any kind of ideas of when you're thinking, oh, well, we're going to hit 1 million followers or something? Do you see that happening soon, or is it a little bit more of an undefined path?
Yeah, I think that the unfortunate truth is that, man, I hope I don't get, reprimanded for this, but the unfortunate truth is that, follower count and stuff like that, these vanity metrics, they're very closely tied to price action. And I'm a true believer that the next bull run, it will be driven by real world utility. And that's sort of where Hedera shines, bear market, bull market. We never stop building. We never stop, trying to bring value to both Web3 and, the emerging digital economy as a whole. And that's where I think that Hedera will really shine through. And that's where we're going to see, the floodgates open, the sort of aha moment where, okay, Hedera is actually doing things in this space. And we should be paying attention. That's sort of where I see a huge sort of a catalyst to Hedera coming on front stage.
Right on. I have to agree with that 100%. And I think that, of course, an account in the crypto space is going to be driven by the market and all those types of things. And, nail on the head with the vanity metrics stuff. I mean, the reality is the amount of followers, that's just kind of an indicator of something else. When we want to look at actual real growth, it's about engagement. It's about the brand coming closer to the community. It's about tearing down those barriers. That's what it's all about. And that's kind of what we talked about today. But that is one conversation down and 100 more to go. Before I share my quick final thoughts on everything, a huge shout out to everybody listening live on Spaces right now. Another shout out to everyone listening to the recording on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And an extra shout out to the supporters of the show. The contributions mean so much. And I wanted to say, for folks listening, Oliver, I think, I want to give a big thank you. It's safe to say on behalf of the community because, pushing the brand in new directions, taking those risks, kind of putting yourself on the line a little bit in those situations as we talked about, I think is really important. And then also, talking about the Sony stuff and everything and just the transparency. I think people in the community are just going to really appreciate this conversation. And I wanted to extend that. And to the community, I wanted to say, it sounds like, the voice of Hedera is one of us. Oliver's a guy that was in the subreddit, in the cryptocurrency subreddit. He found Hedera through, FUD posts on Reddit and went through those same journeys we went through and is dedicated to that. So the retail community, we got a guy on the inside. He's doing the best he can. And I think that Oliver really, it's like, what I would say is, what can the community do to help support you and your work? Because I really think it's important, as someone driving that, the social media aspect of the Hedera brand, like what would you say would be helpful of the community for your efforts inside Swirled and Hedera?
Oh, I mean, honestly, it's, honestly, just keep doing what you're doing. I love this community. I have for a very long time. Despite, as I said before, the people that are always going to have the same thing to say, the same problems with what we're doing. But honestly, I love this community. Just to keep showing your support and just engaging and trying to spread the word of Hashgraph far and wide.
Right on. Okay, Oliver. Well, I really, really appreciate you stopping by. I'm just
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share some final thoughts, so I'll just put you back down to listeners, but I really, really appreciate it. And would love to have you on the show again sometime in the future, because I'm sure we'll have some more spicy deleted tweets to talk about at that time.
Sure. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Right on. Okay, so it looks like this is a situation where, Hedera isn't some big, giant, faceless, scary brand that's like enterprise and this and that. That maybe is how it comes across. But what we've learned today is all the things that we see from the Hedera Twitter account is just, it's just from a guy. His name is Oliver, and he's the same as us. He came from the community. He's doing his best. He's working against a lot of headwinds. He's trying to put some spicy memes out. A lot of times he makes mistakes. He tries things out, but I think that's what we learned at the end of the day, is from the main Hedera account down to the tiniest little NFT project, we're all just kind of people trying to do our best. And really appreciate Oliver for coming on. And I think that anything we can do to kind of help champion those efforts and have more conversations like this where we can, bring the communities closer together, I think is great. So, and with that, thanks for listening to Hashgraph Enthusiast Show episode 92, an interview with my guest, Oliver Thorn, live on Spaces and available on all major podcast platforms. Stay tuned for next week. I think I'm going to have another interview. Don't quite know who my guest is going to be. I have a few ideas of who I want to have as a guest, but I will announce who my guest will be soon. And then, of course, the Hashgraph Enthusiast news will be on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. But the next episode of the news, it'll be the last one at that time. I'm going to be changing the time. That's been a big theme of this episode. Change, getting used to change, adjusting, adapting. That's what this is about. So the show is going through a transformation as we get closer to episode 100, which I'm hoping to do live from LA at the Hello Future Buzz conference. So stay tuned for that. If you'd like to become a supporter of the show, you can send an HBAR contribution to enthusiast.hbar using your Hedera wallet. The show's full Hedera address is in the podcast show notes, YouTube description, and in the thread pinned to the top of the Jumbotron there. Get all the info you need about the show at itsbrandond.com/hbar. And as usual, for everyone listening right now, if you see somebody listening, click their profile picture, send them a message, ask them what's new, ask them what's up. Let's keep the conversation going. And with that, Hello Future, goodbye past.